Yo, what's good, everyone? Just wanted to say this on the front end before we delve into today's show. Tomorrow's the draft, and we're gonna be doing, or I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be going live. Yeah, I'm going live for the draft tomorrow. So stop through the exact timing. Not sure. Maybe like 7:30. It's gonna be a good time, man. Trust me, it's gonna be a good time. I'm gonna call it Deke's draft party extravaganza because there's going to be drink bets. There's going to be prizes. I'm going to do some giveaways. I think it's going to be a good time. I don't want to crazily oversell it. I got some good ideas. I'll get you guys more details on it tomorrow. I'm going to try to make a video tomorrow morning over some of the exact stuff. But just wanted to let you guys know that's something to look forward to for tomorrow with the draft. So definitely stop through. But here is today's show. Draft is tomorrow, man. A lot of rumors flying out there. It's lion season. Like a lot of crazy reports happening. We're going to start off today's show with one that's catching me a little bit off guard. Even though this has been kind of a conversation that's taken place amongst Steeler fans and Steeler media over the last couple of years, and that is a George Pickens trade. Jordan Schultz took to Twitter and also wrote an article on foxsports.com that indicates basically the opposite of what Omar Khan said in his presser yesterday, which is Pickens is seriously on the trade block and the Steelers are listening to offers. Let me pull up the actual tweet and then his actual quotes from his article. Here it is. Sources: multiple teams have brought up Steelers wide receiver George Pickens in trade discussions, and he's a name to watch this week. Pittsburgh isn't actively shopping him, but the conversations have taken place. Pickens is entering the final year of his contract. That's the end of the tweet. And then the bottom two paragraphs here, this is directly from his article on foxsports.com. It's basically like what he's hearing, what's the scuttlebutt around the league heading into the draft, and with just being, 2 days, or I guess, yeah, right now it's 1 day away. It's almost 24 hours away from the first round actually happening. So here's what he said in regards to Pickens. Here's like a little extra context to it. Pickens is one intriguing name to watch. Pittsburgh has taken and made calls. So, the tweet says Pittsburgh isn't actively shopping him, but he says Pittsburgh has taken and made calls. Making calls seems active, no? Anyway, made calls on the talented receiver who's now extension eligible after paying Metcalf. League sources are skeptical the Steelers will pay two receivers. It's just not in their DNA to spend that much on two wideouts, the AFC GM said. Pickens is more available than people think. Green Bay's been serious, and they're not the only ones. That is fair in terms of we don't typically pay two receivers that amount, like the high amounts that you see around the league, like with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith getting the bag with the Eagles. Because think over the years, it's really only been one guy, and then it's been a carousel of receivers as the years go by. Hines Ward for the mid 2000s, and his second receiver went from like Cedric Wilson to Santonio Holmes. And then it became Mike Wallace for a little bit. And then Hines got phased out. And we had a trio of Mike Wallace. It was the Young Money crew of Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders, AB. None of them got their money just yet. And we were going to give it to Mike Wallace. He turned it down, hit the free agent market. We gave it to AB. So AB became the main guy. Emmanuel Sanders, we let walk, go to Denver. And then we know how that went with AB and the Killer Bees. It was like Marcus Wheaton, the number two, for a little bit. Then Martavis, Juju, never gave any of those guys the bag at the same time. AB was the main guy. So, like, he's not wrong. That's what we've done traditionally, but I don't think Omar Khan operates like Kevin Colbert did. I think it's clear as day in Khan's 2 years as the Steelers GM. He's willing to go outside the box in what Kevin Colbert and kind of how the Steelers traditionally have operated with some of this stuff. Like the DK Metcalf trade is a perfect example of that. Would we have ever made this DK Metcalf trade where we give up a second round pick and then pay the dude 5 years, 150 million, is like sight unseen. We haven't even seen him play in a Steeler uniform just yet, but we just gave him a 5-year deal, and he's going to be a Steeler for the foreseeable future. No, that's not something Kevin Colbert would have done. I wish he would have more when we had Big Ben in his prime and everything. So could we pay 2 receivers big money? Yeah, I mean, we can. It traditionally hasn't been the way we've operated, but Omar Khan also hasn't been traditionally operating in the same way that we've done in the past. So I think, yeah, I think anything's on the table here with how we build out this offense, because there have been talks of us potentially moving on from Pickens. We know at times he's been a malcontent. There's been some drama with him. So, like, that's a legit reason why you may have him on the trade block and you're taking offers and looking to see what Pickens' trade value might be, especially with him being under contract for only one more year here. And he's up for extension. At some point, if you want to keep him on the roster, you're going to have to pay him some sizable money, because Pickens has earned a decent second contract just based off production. But if you don't think he's a good locker room fit, you don't think he's going to be a good leader for this offense going forward, like that, yeah, those are the conversations. Those are the reasons why you do consider trading him. But I don't think we are going to trade him. I don't. I think we like Pickens. I think we see the good side in Pickens. I think we have hope for Pickens. And Omar Khan said as much in his press conference yesterday. I mean, he kind of flat out said in a way that Pickens is going to be on this team. When asked about potentially trading Pickens, especially since we don't have a second round pick because of the DK Metcalf trade, Khan said, no, we're glad to have George and DK Metcalf here. I think they're going to be exciting for everyone to watch. Excited to have DK here too. But no. So I think it comes down to who you believe. And again, this is just lying season. I don't think we're really going to get the full truth on this one way or another. But do you believe Omar Khan, who is the Steelers GM, and it's kind of his job to not really have anything serious leak in the media, because that would enable him to lose his leverage on the situation? Like, you don't want that. He doesn't want to. If he is trying to trade Pickens, he doesn't want to openly be out there and say, yeah, we don't really see Pickens as the future and we're trying to get rid of him, because then the Steelers, Omar Khan, lose their leverage in the situation. He doesn't want to say there's no way possible we're going to be going into the 2025 season with Pickens here. So all of a sudden other teams know that, and they're like, yeah, we could get Pickens for less, so we don't have to give up anything big. But that would be very stupid. That would be a very stupid approach. Not only do I think that is inaccurate, I don't think the Steelers are trying to move off of Pickens or think that they can't have a 2025 season with him in house. But yeah, it wouldn't be a smart way to go about things either. Because I think Pickens, I'm more on what Khan's saying here. I actually do kind of believe him in with how the Steelers have operated throughout this offseason. Like, they've been talking about how they want Pickens here, how the message has consistently been how they think DK and Pickens can work together. And if anything, the talks about Pickens being here long term have been favorable. Khan in the scouting combine interviews said, yeah, we see Pickens as a Pittsburgh Steeler. We want him around here a long time. And then this just goes hand in hand with that. And just the fact too that it looks like the Steelers want to try out DK and Pickens for at least 1 year. I think you have to give that a run. You got to give that a chance. Absolutely. Two talented guys like this, two deep threats like this, it could be very similar to what the Eagles got going with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. We keep talking about how teams are going to be trying to fit the Steelers or the Eagles formula in winning and being in Super Bowl contention. This is a way to that. You got the big physical receiver, DK Metcalf, take the top off of defense, good 50-50 catch guy. And then George Pickens, who's the springy, wiry dude who could also make these crazy 50-50 catches, but a little bit more of a route runner than DK. Pickens has his own route running things that he's got to work on and get better at, but it's just two different style of big play receivers that can complement each other really well and be legitimate threats on the outside and open up things for the middle of the field, not only for the Steelers running game, but also for the tight ends and the slot receivers. I think you got to give that a chance. You absolutely got to give that a chance. And I think I'm leaning more on the Steelers are going to give it a chance when push comes to shove. Again, who do you believe? Do you believe Omar Khan here? Do you believe Jordan Schultz, who's, reporting on this type of stuff and he's in the know and got his inside sources, but are the inside sources telling him things that they want out there to murky the waters on what the real messaging is and throw up smoke screens? Like this is the time of year that we're in right now. So I'm leaning Khan. Absolutely. Even if he's just saying this to say this and the Steelers are just doing their due diligence on the Pickens situation behind the scenes, I think we're not going to trade George Pickens. That would be my bet. The draft is going to come and go. We're not going to trade Pickens. If anything, before this offseason ends, I could see us giving Pickens a multi-year deal. Not $30 million, even though Pickens could make a case based off production that he's earned something in the 27, 28 million per year range, maybe up to 30, with Ayuk getting the deal that he got with the 49ers last year. I mean, my God. But, something like Devonta Smith, honestly, something like 2-3 years, not 4 or 5 years, 2-3 years for like 25 per. I could see that. I could see that happening. But I could also see the Steelers. I think it would be actually smart to hold off on the multi-year contract extension with Pickens and want to just see if the him and DK Metcalf combo could actually work out first, because Steelers don't have to do anything, but I'm sure they could. You know what? If they do give Pickens an extension, they could clear some cap space in the here and now, and maybe even next year. And depending on the guarantees, maybe there's an out after the third year. Like Omar Khan doesn't make bad deals. I'll just put it to you that way. So I think there is a world where a happy medium is reached between the two parties at the end of this offseason. Pickens gets some security. He's paid for what he's done on the field for the first 3 years. And the Steelers can get some immediate cap relief in the first 2 years of the contract. So, yeah, that's that in terms of the Pickens trade talks that have heated up over the last 24, 48 hours. But you know what? I do have this. If Pickens were to get traded, PFF has a potential trade offer out there. They wrote an article that headlined one trade every team should consider heading into the draft. And there's actually two trades here because the Steelers are involved in two scenarios. The one is with the Detroit Lions, and the other one is with us as like the main team. They have George Pickens and the number 185th pick fetching back for the Steelers, picks number 102 and 196. So that's a 5th round pick and George Pickens for a 4th and 5th round pick. Basically a 5th round pick swap. We're basically trading George Pickens and getting a 4th round pick is what PFF is kind of saying what George Pickens' market is. This is ridiculous. There's no way. Their explanation, well, they have the Lions explanation in that first paragraph. I don't need to go over that, but they say Pickens is a free agent 2025 season. Steelers added DK in a blockbuster trade earlier in the offseason, so perhaps they could let Pickens walk if the offer is enticing. That's not an enticing offer. Not an enticing offer at all. Not only do I want to keep George Pickens, or we'll say I want to keep George Pickens. How about that? I want George Pickens to be on the roster for 2025. Wouldn't mind giving him an extension. I echo everything I just said about 5 minutes ago, 4 or 5 minutes ago about this situation. Like that's how I feel. But if we were going to trade him, it would have to be a 2nd round pick, bare minimum. bare minimum, because you need a Pickens replacement, a guy that can come in and actually do some stuff right away. And Steelers would have to be confident they can get one of these nice guys in the second round, like maybe one of these Iowa State receivers. Maybe a Buka falls to the second round. It'd have to be a second round pick at minimum, and I don't think I would be that thrilled about it. I would rather just have George Pickens, because George Pickens' talent, George Pickens' upside, who I think George Pickens can ultimately be, is higher than all those guys that I just mentioned. Now, if we were getting a first round pick for Pickens and we drafted a Matthew Golden, okay, wouldn't be thrilled to see Pickens walk or leave, but Matthew Golden would be a pretty good replacement. If you're talking pop that he could give your offense, the speed, the playmaking, all that stuff, I wouldn't mind a Matthew Golden on a rookie contract. You could sell me that is the better move for the Steelers' future, and could maybe arguably be the better move for the 2025 season, having Matthew Golden in here than a Pickens. But outside of that, I'm not really trying to trade Pickens. Or maybe you could bring up a T-Mac too, but I don't know. I like Pickens as a player better than T-Mac, but you got to consider the rookie contracts and the timing of all that stuff, and the timing of the deals and how it affects the cap space. I understand, but I'd just rather have Pickens than T-Mac. Matthew Golden's the one guy that I would say, okay, yeah, I get that. I get that. I'm not going to be hating on this trade too much. But man, yeah, for the most part, I just want to keep Pickens. I think ultimately that's what the Steelers are going to do too. Here's the other trade though, because I'm going to transition this into what the Steelers might do, like might seriously do in the draft here, based off all the stuff that we're hearing now. Closer we get to the draft, I think it's either going to be. Let me just get into this. I'll save my conclusion for the end, actually, on what I feel that the Steelers are going to do. So here's what PFF also thinks the Steelers should consider here. As I said, their article was about trades that teams should really look into heading into the draft, and this one involves us trading back, and this one's with the Eagles. So I did a mock draft like 2 weeks ago, and I had us trading with the Eagles, but we got it was their second round pick in the mock draft, like trade simulator. We got the 32 pick and the 64 pick, which is a lot better what this projection is right here, because this is the 32 and the 96. So this is the first round pick swap, us giving up 21 and getting their 32. And then we get their third round pick, which isn't like that great because it's like at the end of the third round, and a 2026 fifth rounder. So that's a future fifth rounder. And we give up 229, which is off the top of my head, I think that's either a sixth or seventh rounder. Not on. It's a late pick. We know that. So this is not as good as the trade package I got in that mock draft, but also wouldn't be the worst thing to do. Getting an extra day 2 pick, 96. That's not bad. We know the type of depth that is in this draft with a lot of quality players, like starter caliber type of players. Not a lot of stars, but there are guys that you could draft in that 96 range, in that third round, that could have impact for your team over the course of the many years down the line. So I wouldn't be completely against this. And we've talked about the Steelers potentially trading back, right? Like you got to see how the board falls, and it's likely going to fall where there's multiple options available at 21. And they very likely could also be there at 32 or late in the first. So why not pick up an extra day 2 pick, given that we don't have our second rounder with the DK Metcalf trade? Why not build on the depth? We could still get a high-end guy in the first, but get an extra pick in the third round. Second rounder, that would be a no-brainer, and that's what I got in the mock draft simulator. But I didn't think that was as realistic. This feels more in line. Maybe I don't know though. That 96 is at the end of the third. Eagles, I think they'd have to throw in something a little, like maybe a fourth round pick too, a future fourth or a fifth for this draft. I feel like something else would have to get that done. But here's the explanation. Would the Steelers do this trade if Shedeur Sanders were on the board? Maybe not, but if Sanders is on the board at pick 21, there's a high chance he will be there at pick number 32. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think other teams will trade back into the first round. QB needy teams will trade back into the first round from the second round, like the Browns or the Giants, especially if the Browns take Travis Hunter. I think they're going to want to try to do that college combo of QB wide receiver like the Bengals did with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. And that's the line the Steelers can walk here by trading down with the Eagles. Even if Sanders is drafted by the final pick in the first round, Pittsburgh picks up needed draft pick. It's a win-win situation for the Steelers. If Sanders is still available, they'll get a quarterback with a fifth-year option and add extra picks to flesh out the roster. I think this is more of the scenario, like the situation that PFF's bringing up here is more likely if defensive line. Like if Shedeur is not there and it's like a couple of defensive linemen like Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant, maybe Walter Nolan. If he falls, a lot of people are linking him to the 49ers with that 11th pick. But if there's a few defensive linemen there, if the safety out of South Carolina is still there, we like him. There's a couple guys that we feel good about. And we feel like they could also potentially be there at 32. Like we don't have to get them at 21. That's basically all the non-quarterback positions. Defensive line, maybe the safety, maybe receiver. If those guys, if there's a nice pocket of players, maybe 5 or 6 players that are there at 21, they feel like a couple of them will still be there at 32. I think that's when we'd be trading back. Not if Shedeur's there. Not if we're high on Jackson Dart. Not if we're high on Jalen Milroe. I think we're just going to take the guy at 21. Maybe I could see Jalen Milroe. I could see if Pittsburgh has a decent gauge on how other teams feel about Jalen Milroe, you might be able to trade back and still get him there at 32, or maybe even in the second round if you want to trade back into the early second. Or if you make your pick at 21, maybe you could, if Jalen Milroe's still there and it's not a quarterback, Jalen Milroe's still there in the second round, you trade up from the third to try to get Milroe in the second. So like there's options. I don't see this being the way we trade down or the board playing out in this style. And we're like, yeah, no, I think we could risk not drafting Shedeur right now and think he's going to be there. I don't see it with quarterback. I see it with the other positions like defensive line, safety, receiver. Although defensive line it feels like that's the main thing that Steelers are thinking about. Defensive line, quarterback. I think Eamon Wara from I botch his name up a lot, from South Carolina. He would be a luxury pick. Receiver, we're doing our due diligence a little bit on receiver and some of these guys. I don't see it happening in the first round like that, given the receivers we got on our roster and Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin still being there as our third and fourth guys. I can't see it. So I think defensive line, particularly, that's the main position you got to see how things are looking at 21. If there's a few available, that's the most likely situation, I think, for the Steelers to be trading back. And Omar Kant even hinted at this today. The quote's at the very bottom of this. Asked about targeting defensive linemen and if that allows more of an opportunity to trade down. He says, absolutely 100%. I mean, it just gives you options. So that's what I'm thinking. If there is a trade back scenario, that would be it. Maybe Shedeur's off the board. We're not seriously thinking quarterback. Some of these position players are available, like defensive line, a bunch of guys that we like, and we feel like they're going to be there at 32. That's how I think the trade back happens. Is what the Eagles offered in that PFF trade good enough? I would like a little bit more. I feel like that was scarce, a little bit too scarce of an offer, but it wouldn't be the worst thing as long as you got your guy. There is something to be said for just taking the guy that you want. If it is Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, you don't want to risk them not being there. There's something to be said for that, and those wouldn't be bad picks either. Even if it's not quarterback, that's going to be the splashy pick. That's the thing going to be making the headlines. We know we're seriously looking at defensive line help, and we need that. So Kenneth Grant, a Derek Harmon, a Walter Nolan, Wouldn't be a bad pick either, just at 21. Just stay in there, no trade back. Wouldn't be the worst case scenario. Last thing, though. So there's that. Trade back, I think, is in play. I don't think trade up is in play. Khan talked about that. He said most likely option is us staying put or trading back. Schefter has reported on that. Steelers are looking into trading back. They want to see what the board's looking like, but I don't see us trading up. I don't. But trading back could be an option. You just got to see how the board falls. And that was my mentality going into that live mock draft. But speaking of Shedeur, speaking of quarterback, because we know that is going to be in play in the first round. We had a former Steeler player, Merril Hoge, give his assessment on Shedeur and how he thinks his game's going to translate to the NFL. He thinks Shedeur's going to be an epic failure. He says he can't handle the expectations that are coming his way. He's going to be an epic failure, and he's going to set your organization back another 2 or 3 years. The best way to sum it up is he's a really good college quarterback. His accuracy is good. His processing is good. And when I say good, I use a scale 1 to 10. So good is around 5. So if you're a 5 in college, okay. Those are the 2 most important aspects of transitioning to the National Football League. And then you build from there. Anticipation, pocket awareness, and then we start building. But those 2 things, if you're a 5, you're not a first rounder. You're not a franchise guy. And why is this something to note? Obviously, there's Shedeur Sanders connections to the Pittsburgh Steelers and us drafting him. But Merril Hoge in the past has given some really unpopular takes regarding quarterbacks, like some hyped up quarterbacks, popular quarterbacks, big name quarterbacks coming into the draft. And as time has passed, Hoge, actually looks pretty decent with those takes. They've aged like fine wine. And I'll give a few examples. Johnny Manziel was probably the most notable one. He ripped on Manziel coming out saying any team that drafts him, I think the whole coaching staff, the whole management, the front office is going to be turned over in about a year or 2. No one's going to last a Johnny Manziel pick. It's going to be that detrimental to a franchise. And then you see what happened. I think Johnny Manziel coming out of Texas A&M, a lot of people thought he was a first-round lock, right? He was going to be a stud in the NFL. Like, he was deserving of potentially the number 1 overall pick, being a top 10 pick. Him getting taken to the Browns in the 20s was him falling. Remember that. And you got Merril Hoge say, like, he's not worth a first-round pick at all. If anything, he's worth a late-round pick, and if you take him in the first round, it's going to be a disaster. People thought Merril Hoge was crazy at the time, but you see how it played out. C.J. Stroud's draft. Merril Hoge said C.J. Stroud was the only quarterback in this class worth a first-round grade. Bryce Young went number 1. Anthony Richardson went number 4. He also ripped on Will Levis, who was a guy that was being talked about potentially being a late first-round guy. He said C.J. Stroud, only guy in his class. That's aging pretty well also. And then most recently in last year's draft. Now, the verdict's still out on a bunch of these guys, but he said Caleb Williams, nothing special. Drake May, nothing special. And if there was one quarterback out of last year's class that was most pro-ready and he felt like was going to be successful early on, it was Jaden Daniels. He's pretty good. Now, I still think Caleb Williams can do something with the Bears. I think Drake May could do something with the Patriots, but so far, if you're going to rank those 3 quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, number 1, going away. Not even a question. Whereas Drake May, Caleb Williams had their ups and downs their rookie year. Nothing special as a way to describe them thus far. And Shedeur Sanders, again, is being linked to the Steelers, and this is what Merril Hoge had to say about him. He thinks it's going to be a total failure. He thinks he's going to – whatever team takes Shedeur Sanders is going to be setting the franchise back 2 to 3 years. I don't fully agree with Merril Hoge here. I don't. So as much as Hoge has gotten some of these quarterback takes right in the past, he's not 100% either. No one is. And it's just weird the way he analyzes Shedeur Sanders and what his criteria is for him thinking that Shedeur's not going to be all that in the pros. He says his processing is good, his accuracy is good. He only rates it a 5 in college. I mean, Shedeur Sanders threw for 74%. I know the knock is a lot of that was screens and short passes, but then if you take it up another level and look at passes for Shedeur that weren't screens or weren't like 5 yards, there's something out there that he's throwing 80% like down the field. Like his accuracy actually gets better in some of the layered passes. So like that's the weird thing to me. Like Shedeur is known for his accuracy right now. That is his calling card. That would be his elite trait. And then the processing stuff too, like that's something that's being highly regarded for Shedeur. Him being a throwback pocket passer. I mean, the 4,000 plus yards, the 37 touchdowns. He's got to be processing something, right, to get those type of stats. Now, there's some knocks in his game that holds on to the ball a little bit too long, but I know he wasn't dealing with the best of offensive lines with Colorado, and it's not like he had this outside of Travis Hunter. He had this great team surrounding him. I think this is a weird. I just don't agree. I mean, going to be an epic failure. I think Shedeur he's going to be good. I think he has a certain floor. He's going to be solid. I see the path of him at least being, I brought it up yesterday, a Tua, a Baker Mayfield, a Brock Purdy, like one of those type of guys. Obviously, he will be helped out if he's got good surroundings, but that's what I kind of see for Shedeur. He's going to have a decent NFL career. I think the questions about him is he going to be top 5? Is he going to be top 10? Is he going to be elite? Because the arm strength isn't elite. It doesn't have to be. There's been elite guys with not elite arm strength, but it's you. I mean, you got to be elite at that other stuff. And so far, it's the accuracy, the processing, the pocket quarterback stuff. Shedeur's been, he's been on a good path, I think, so far, looking at his college career at that stuff. It's like, can you take that up another level in the pros? Can you improve your arm strength? I think that's possible. We've seen that done before. Tom Brady did it. Like, Tom Brady wasn't throwing the ball at Michigan the way that he was in his prime and the middle years of New England when he was throwing those bombs at Randy Moss. So he improved his arm strength. He was able to work out, do stuff behind the scenes to improve his arm strength. So could Shedeur maybe improve his escapability a little bit, improve the mobility? I don't know how that's going to be necessarily possible. I'm sure there's drills and stuff to do, but in terms of the arm strength, I think he could do that. And it might really do him good, even though I feel like he is pro ready to sit for a year or two and maybe develop the arm strength, develop some of that stuff behind the scenes. And then, year 2, year 3, he could be off to the races. But, I don't agree with this one with Merril Hoge. I don't. I think this is extreme, very extreme. I think it's a wrong take. So Merril Hoge has gotten some of his quarterback takes right in the past. I'm going to go up on a hill and go out on a limb and say he's going to be wrong on this one. And I feel like Shedeur is going to be a good pro quarterback. My questions revolving around Shedeur: is he going to be elite? Is he going to be a franchise guy? Because there's franchise guys, and then there's next level franchise guys. And the next level franchise guys are the ones that you're really looking for, because then you feel like you're in Super Bowl contention year in and year out. Now, what did the Steelers actually do? So, let me conclude this show by giving you a piece of my mind on what the Steelers do in round 1. I think they take Shedeur. I really do. I think all the signs are there. Now, how much do you want to believe those signs? Because a lot of signs were there for us taking Malik Willis, and we end up going with Kenny Pickett. I think the quarterbacks that are most quiet right now regarding their connection to the Steelers, it would be like Milroe and Dart. The Shedeur stuff is getting loud. So you wonder if some of this Shedeur talk that's being thrown out there, is that the Steelers trying to throw some smoke screens at people? But I think Tomlin is genuine in his respect for Shedeur and how he evaluated his Colorado days, his days at college. And I think Tomlin does really respect Shedeur's game. And there's also reports out there that Arthur Smith really likes Shedeur. I don't know. I think it's gonna happen because we know Tomlin loves pedigree. He loves uh, if your dad or anyone that is related to you played in the NFL back in the day, because you know what to expect coming into the league. Like the league atmosphere, the league environment isn't going to be too big for you. And Shedeur Sanders, his last name is Sanders. He's been Deion Sanders' son this whole time and coming up through the ranks and playing through college. There's been a lot of eyes on him. I think it would be safe to assume that Shedeur Sanders, like the lights aren't going to be too bright for him becoming a Pittsburgh Steeler, being drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round. And I think Tomlin does really appreciate that type of stuff. It's why we've had so many brothers and relatives and sons of former NFL players on this team. So like another little thing that goes in the Shedeur to Steelers' favor. That's what I think is going to happen. If Shedeur's there, I think we take him. If we don't, it's going to be defensive tackle or we trade back. That's what I think it is. And that's kind of how I've been sifting through today's episode. I think that's where everything's pointing to. We end up, we're going to take a running back in round 3, round 4. If we take quarterback in round 1, we'll take defensive lineman round 3, then running back round 4. If we don't take quarterback, it's in defensive lineman, then running back in round 3 is in play. Maybe receivers in play. There's a lot of different positions in play, but we'll most likely go running back, and then round 4, could that be quarterback? I guess maybe you go quarterback round 3 as well, like Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, or something like that. I think that's how it plays out. Quarterback, running back, defensive tackle will be 3 of the top 4 or 5 picks. We don't have a second rounder, but out of that first rounder, the third rounder, the fourth rounder, and the fifth rounder, I think that's going to be the combination, most likely. That's what I think the Steelers ultimately do. That's my prediction one day out. But we'll be back again tomorrow, 6 p.m. Talk more draft. We'll see what the latest news and headlines are, react to that, and then it'll be draft time shortly after tomorrow's show ends. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay chilling. Peace.